Thank you very much, Naseem. And good evening, everyone. For me, it's a pleasure to be back at this dinner. It was 3 years ago that WITA gave me this award, Mike. And I remember that dinner and the occasion very well. I also want to thank WITA for the opportunity to present tonight's award. We're here to celebrate champions of trade, so it's a great honor for me to be able to present this year's Congressional Leadership Award to Senator Mike Crapo. I also want to take a moment to congratulate tonight's other award recipient, Senator Michael Bennet. Let me say a little bit about Mike Crapo. Mike is not only a good friend, but he is one of the Senate's most thoughtful and effective policymakers. Mike Crapo and I served together for many years. We served on the Banking Committee together, the Finance Committee. And let me tell you, when Mike stands up to speak, whether it's on banking or tax or trade, everyone listens. And not because he shouts. If you know him, Mike never shouts. But because he actually knows what he's talking about, which, let's be honest, makes him a little bit of an outlier on Capitol Hill. Now, I'll get to trade in a minute, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Mike's leadership on the recent tax reform legislation, which I think was nothing short of masterful. First, it was Mike Crapo who pushed for the use of a current policy baseline. Yes, that is arcane, but it's a critical tool that ensured that we wouldn't pretend that temporary sunsets are meant to be permanent policy. And although it sounds wonky, and in fact it is wonky, it was crucial for extending the most pro-growth tax policy in decades. And it was no easy feat. Mike had to persuade every Republican colleague of the merits of his approach. Now, I know something about how hard it is to persuade Republican senators. A few years ago, some of you might even remember, I tried to persuade each Republican senator to vote against USMCA on the grounds that NAFTA, the agreement USMCA was meant to supersede, was a better trade agreement. Thank you. Okay. I knew I had a staffer here. Well, I persuaded exactly 0 of my Republican colleagues. So I'm impressed that Mike was able to persuade all of his Republican colleagues to adopt an unconventional baseline. The fact that he succeeded is a testament to his quiet, persistent persuasiveness and effectiveness. Equally important was Mike's leadership in making the pro-growth features of our tax code permanent. Lower rates, full expensing, incentives to invest and grow. Mike Crapo understands what some people forget. Uncertainty is the enemy of investment, and permanent, predictable policy is the friend of growth. Without Senator Mike Crapo, yeah, you can applaud that. Here's the thing, without Senator Crapo, those provisions probably would have been extended, but they almost certainly would not have been made permanent. Mike Crapo, you made a huge difference on that. So much of Mike's effectiveness, I think, is attributable to his subject matter expertise and attention to detail. Now, I'll admit, I always thought I was the Senate's top tax nerd, but Mike has me beat. This guy can recite the Joint Committee on Taxation distribution tables from memory and still make it home in time for dinner in Idaho. I'm telling you, he's something. But his leadership doesn't end at tax policy. After all, we're honoring him tonight over trade policy. Mike has been a long-standing advocate for international trade, precisely because he understands how vital trade is to American prosperity. He's worked to expand market access for American farmers and ranchers and manufacturers, to modernize outdated trade agreements, and to protect the rule-based system that allows American innovation to thrive globally. Mike knows that you can be pro-America and pro-trade. These are not contradictory. In fact, they're complementary. And Mike knows that when America competes, America wins. Now, I will acknowledge these are tough times for those of us like me who are hardcore free traders. But I still think it's possible that the current multi-front trade war ends reasonably well. Between the committed protectionists, those who genuinely seek greater reciprocity in trading regulations, and those of us who embrace maximum trade freedom, maybe there's a way to get to an end state of generally lower barriers to trade and the prosperity that that would enable. But if we're going to get there, it'll require leadership with great policy mastery and political skills, and that's the kind of leadership that Mike Crapo has shown again and again. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present this Congressional Leadership Award to Senator Mike Crapo for his steadfast leadership in support of global trade and his enduring commitment to economic growth and opportunity. Congratulations, Mike, and thank you for everything you do to defend and expand American economic freedom.
Well, thank you, Pat. I ought to actually just sit down right now after that incredible introduction. And I do have to say, when I heard that Pat Toomey was going to be the one introducing me tonight, I was truly honored. It's as big an honor as the honor of receiving this award from WITA. Pat is a great friend. We go back a long way. We've gone through a lot of battles together. And he is, well, he's not in the Senate now, but he was the tax guru when he was in the Senate. He was the one behind building the TCJA. He was one of the lead, if not the lead, architects of the TCJA. And we all know how successful that was. And that's just one of the incredible accomplishments that Pat had. So thank you, Pat, for being willing to come down and be here with us tonight. I'm honored to receive this year's WITA Congressional Leadership Award, especially considering that I'm joining people like Pat and Michael Bennet, one of my great friends in the Senate as well. We are on different sides of the aisle, but we work together everywhere we can and try to find good policy for America. And tonight is not only a great opportunity to connect with old friends, but after the last few months of reconciliation, it's actually refreshing to not have somebody tell me about some part of the tax code they want to fix tonight. I'm very proud of what we achieved in reconciliation, and as I often say, I have the best staff in town who helped make that happen. But yeah, they're here. Congratulations also have to go out to President Trump, who shared the vision, and Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson and Jason Smith, and the list goes on and on and on of committed members of the House and the Senate, and the President and his team who worked together just tirelessly over the last 6 months to get this job done. As Pat indicated, our number one focus was permanence in the TCJA and in the pro-growth tax provisions that we were able to work into the code. Business certainty is the driving factor in additional growth and investment in the United States. And the One Big Beautiful Bill's commitment to pro-growth tax policies support this ideal. But even pro-growth tax policies like this are not enough. Trade policies do matter. And not just any trade policy, but effective trade policies. Those in this room who work on sophisticated supply chains around the world know very well what that means. Effective trade policies manifest on two conditions: expanded market access and accountability for commitments made. First, we need to make sure that the opportunity to compete fairly in new markets is not abused abroad and is realized as a part of any lasting trade deal. And whether we talk about Idaho potatoes or Pennsylvania dairy or Boeing airplanes, the bottom line here is we must have access to markets and enforcement of market commitments in trade agreements. Second, we must hold our traders accountable, the enforcement part, for carrying out their trade commitments. Full enforcement of U.S. rights under our various trade agreements breeds certainty and is critical to our manufacturing, innovation, and creative and tech industries, which, like our agriculture sector, are second to none. To find a list of what commitments the United States needs to enforce, one need only look at this year's robust National Trade Estimate report, in which the administration carefully identified all of the ways that Americans lose out in the global marketplace, and that's the battle we are in today. I know there are a lot of different opinions today about how the administration is approaching this battle. My colleagues and I in Congress have wanted to pursue a real trade policy for some time, and we are now going to work and partner with our president in that effort. It is past time for the United States to resume global leadership on trade rather than ceding it to China, and we need to seize this moment. Yes, there's plenty of room for debate on how this needs to be done, but that is because finally we have substantive and novel trade ideas and commitments to engage. My hope is that as we move forward, we can work together, Republicans and Democrats, business and policymakers, to achieve the objectives that give us enforceable, real trade agreements with market access and enforceability. And that's the direction that I will focus on as we move forward to work with President Trump as he works himself to develop market access and enforceability in our trade commitments with our trading partners. And I look forward to working together with all of you in that endeavor as we move forward. Thank you again for this tremendous honor.